stream the meeting to YouTube. I don't have to go out of a Zoom. There's an API, an application program interface doing both of those, and I make sure I always have to check and double check what I have. So I have that going for me. Anything else that I have, Anna and Raphael will let me know how it's going. Okay, so always let's talk about the what's due section. And I'm going to share my screen. And if I share my screen, and Anna, you see my screen? What screen am I showing now that you see? That I'm making sure that you see what I see.
I see your YouTube screen.
Okay, so you see my YouTube streaming. I have YouTube Watch TV, and they give me a special note on that. And let's go to our section. And always what we want to do is a reminder. Some of you attended the Wix webinar. Did you attend it, Anna?
No, I had class that
Okay.
ended after 12.
Okay, so basically you don't have to worry about it. We're going to get a code from it. And Raphael, did you attend the Wix
And
webinar?
no, unfortunately, because I also had class.
Yeah, so some people had class, but it was some people from Isabella, did you attend?
Yes, I did.
I saw some of your comments. What did you think of it?
I thought it was like pretty informative. I just had my camera off the whole time though.
Right. But they didn't even ask for, could you see other participants?
No, you could only see like the main screen, I think. Yeah,
Right.
you could only see the main person.
Right. And could you even see how many people attended?
No, nothing.
No. So they put a block there on the webinar. That's where I think they could have done a better job, don't you? That you could have spoken to other people. And what they did is they blocked that. They put out screens. A number of companies do that for webinars, is they don't want you to know how many people attended. I think that's a mistake. I think sometimes they do it. They don't want their people to sell their own wares and things like that. I think it's a mistake. And I don't think they would have had to force people to show their camera. It's not like a credit class, but they could have offered, right, to make it more amenable that people could do that. They also didn't let people unmic themselves, right? So it was just full of text. So they had it, and then they showed some of their product line. Some of it isn't working as adequately, but I can complain about that, Isabella. But on the flip side is they're giving their business version that's like $500 or $600. And how much are we going to have to pay, Isabella?
We don't have to pay anything.
We don't have to pay anything. So who am I to complain, right? I should be happy for us to be able to use that. And we get it for a year and we get a free domain. And we'll talk about that after the spring break. Okay, so let's go to what's due section. And in the what's due, I have two parts here in the what's due. Let's go first to what's due today. What's due today was the AI powered research assistant assignment that particularly we looked at Notebook LM. And then you had the readings, the adaptive assignment, and information security. Information security or cyber security that I like to talk about is quite important for us to know about. And I have also added this additional reading. This additional reading will be crucial for us to understand. Plus, I will talk about it further, plus it will be on our exam. So if I look at open link here, I would suggest before our next class, some people may have not had time to read it because you were so busy doing this research assignment. But I would look at this cybersecurity in higher education, even though it's by a company called SentinelOne. I think they do a great job in talking about what are the threats to universities. And what we really can understand is we're all part of a university. So I like to use the university as an example because we all can understand, right, our part in it. So basically, they're talking about universities having even more cyber threats. And guess what? The hackers, Raphael, are using AI to hack all these spots. So they're getting to be a hacker, Raphael. You don't have to be a great hacker. You're just using AI to help you. And then the other side has to use AI to help you defend against these hackers. So you'll see these. Basically, these are the things. What you're having is what is cybersecurity, right? And the risks and ransomware attacks, phishing, social engineering, the data breaches, and so forth. What I like to do, Anna, is if I go to Notebook LM, let me just go back here. If I go to Notebook LM, what I like to do, if I add sources, you see that? I can add a link. I would suggest you take that link and add it to your overview. And what I like to do even is see when it says on this side, select all sources, I like to uncheck my other sources and just have it concentrate on the cybersecurity in higher education. And then I can do an audio overview, a video overview, a slide deck, flashcards, a mind map. So when I go to my mind map, let me just get rid of these, right? When I go to my mind map of cybersecurity in higher education, I can even think about the core risks, best practices, what we call frameworks and standards, institutional challenges and emerging ends. And then if I say, okay, what are the core risks? I get an overview. Well, one is ransomware, that they basically, instead of kidnapping somebody in our families and asking for ransom or asking for some payment, what hackers do is they come into an organization through their servers. Who is most vulnerable are universities, and especially universities that are attached to medical schools and hospitals. So if you think about that, Julia, the University of Miami has a hospital attached to it, right? So those are very sensitive. And what can they do for a hospital? They can go in and shut down their servers. And you say to yourself, Anna, what's the big deal? They shut down a server. Well, if you have to go to surgery tomorrow, Anna, on your left foot, right? And they don't have any information about all your x-rays and what they're supposed to do, you are in deep trouble. And just think how many, probably in a day, they make millions of dollars, the university, just on surgeries, just taking MRIs, just going in under the knife, right? And if they are, the next day, they can't even get to their servers. They don't even know who they're supposed to operate on. And what are they supposed to operate on? And what are you allergic to a certain anesthesia that, I can put you under and you'll never wake up? Can you imagine how much it is? So what ends up being on this ransomware is hospitals usually do not have security controls that are tight. Hackers know that, get into their servers, shut them down, and they say, you want to be up and running tomorrow morning? guess what? Pay. And what do you think they're going to pay with, Anna? Dollars?
No, probably like Bitcoin or crypto or something like that.
Yeah, Bitcoin. So guess what? Hospitals have insurance. And one of the insurances, they also have, I guarantee you, they have Bitcoin accounts. Because for them, and they don't ask, usually they're smart enough to know they don't ask for billions. They may ask for, let's say, 500,000. Well, in one day they make more than $5,000, so they'll pass it on. Phishing and social engineering, trying somebody to get information, data breaches, infrastructure, and then you look at what are the best practices. What we need to do risk assessment. What does that mean? Is how valuable are our assets? Just like if I have $100,000 condo, and let's say for the spot, Anna, you have a $20 million house, who should spend more on what are the risks if I get broken into my house, or if I have a $20,000 car and you have a $100,000 car? It may be the differences of how much the risk is and what is the problem. If somebody gets into my PowerPoints and steals my PowerPoints, no big shakes. But if they get into my information, that the university has my credit card information and has all the patient credit card and data, that we need to assess what's the risk. And then we need to basically train people in the university to be aware of the problems. And then you can think about encryptions, incidents, and then there's something called frameworks and standards that higher education can look at certain governing bodies to help guide them of how they can secure what? Their data. So you'll see here in frameworks, these are common frameworks based on certain organizations that give guidance to, for instance, universities. How should they protect their data? FERPA is for family, you need to know. GLBA is for finance institutions. GDPR is for data privacy for the European Union. All of these, what's the purpose of this? It gives guidelines for the administrators to say, we follow these protocols that will help us keep our data safe. And then you look at what are the institutional challenges. I can get large attacks. I have such a diverse user base. What else do I have a problem with? Everyone, it's called BYOD. It's bring your own device. Do people bring their own device to campus? Of course. You all bring in your laptops to campus. So this is a problem. I don't know what you have on your individual computers. There's budget constraints. There's not a lot of staffing. I'm shortage of people to really protect us. And I have supply chain vulnerabilities. And then you think about what are the emerging trends. Of course, there's going to be more attacks. There's going to be, even for my competitors, it could be espionage. Now, basically, what? I have a hybrid environment. Sometimes I have online. Sometimes I have it in person. And then I have third parties that I work with. What are the risks? So these are kind of ways in which you can look at it. I'm giving you a way that I'm asking you for addition, just like you said, that it could help you with your sources here, Anna. You could just put in that and it could help you, and you could get a podcast on it. You can get slide decks as well. So you'll be able to see that as well. So this is, I suggest you know this well. So let's do, everybody, any questions, Anna and Raphael, anybody for yourselves or anyone in the group that you want to ask me about today's assignment? Anything, Raphael?
I don't have any questions. I feel like everything was
Okay.
pretty well said, but there's no
Okay.
questions in the chat.
Okay, perfect. And you don't have a question. So the other part that I want to talk about for next Monday, we're now having our assignments due on Monday. And what do I want? The next one is I have another audit assignment. This is the last audit assignment I give you before the exam. And in this case, this audit assignment is a reflection assignment, being you've all done Notebook LM, you've all chosen another, supposedly a different chapter, and I want you to come together to reflect on it. So if I look at it, it's in under audit assignment instructions. And in there, notice it is assignment 5. And under assignment 5, the whole purpose is to meet as a group. And the beauty, right, Isabella, is you don't have to physically find a time. You just virtually need to do a time. And what I'd like you to do is to come together and look back at the, not only on the individual assignment, but how can this be used? What were the issues, the problems that you had? A lot of people had problems in the podcast. How do I join the podcast to get any meaningful information? See if anyone else was able to do that successfully. And your goal is to reflect on this type of product and your lessons learned. So you do the same thing in retrospect, what you've done with other group projects is you have one person, you click on your own notebook that you created for that individual assignment. You have one person in your group, invite other people, right? And of course, you record to the cloud without a passport. So you'll need the person recording and setting it up, have a viable YouTube account. You'll make sure that AI companion is on. And the beauty here is have it summarize the meeting. You don't have to bother with it, but then you can edit it if you want. And each member then can talk about the different parts, their mind map, their study guide, and explainer, and multiple choice questions. What's nice about this is it could also be a pre-review, right, Anna? When somebody shows you their multiple choice questions, it can help you, and you show yours, it can help. You'll think about the audio video, explain your thoughts on other features, your takeaways, and this is key here, is I would like you to think about how you can improve this product. You may even be working with these groups, or you may be doing reviews of these products, and it's important to be critical. And then you submit in the audit. You'll create the folder. So if I go to my audit area and I go to my assignment groups, I'll use my group 0 as my TAs. And notice here, you can even do this. One person in your group can even do this right away. You need another folder called AI Powered Research Assistant Reflections Assignment. And if I look at it, what do I see? I see the sample. And in this case, instead of the sample, maybe it would be good of the group name, right? So this is like group 1 or 2, right? You may want to even, Anastasia, can you be so kind and just change this instead of sample, maybe call it group 0, AI
Will
powered,
do.
AI powered research assistant. And then you have your Zoom link. When they first did it, notice they ran into issues with their YouTube live stream, and then later on they put it up. There's Zoom AI companion summary, of course, who attended the meeting, their reflections individually, Anna's reflections, Isa's reflections, Sophia's, and Stephen's. since this was done, they ended up putting the YouTube live stream and their issues and improvement ideas. It's not a difficult assignment, but I think one of the things I like about it, it's a reflection assignment and also gives you a chance to review. Each of you took different chapters, so it's a way for you also to give a little review session to each other to help you prepare for the exam. Any questions on that? Comments? Pretty straightforward. Victoria, what do you think of the next assignment? Any comments?
No, it seems pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. Get with the group, see what they've done in terms of the chapters. Supposedly each of you have done differently, and figure out, looking at Notebook LM, how you could possibly also think about how you can improve it, and what issues you had, Victoria, or with other people, you can help each other. Oh, this is how I did the joining of the seminar. This is how I put in the sources. So you can be able to do that clearly. Okay? The next part. Victoria, do you see my screen?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I'm on the assignment. I'm going to go back to what's due on my regular section. So I know this part. The second part of my assignment is a review, exam 1 review guide. Everybody basically wants to know what's on the exam. If I were a student, I would want to know too, in order to use my time appropriately, and that I won't be shocked when I have to sit down for an exam and I have no clue what's going to be on it. Also, it, I think, reduces the anxiety. So you have it here. You can do it on this PDF right here, or you can go to PowerPoints and documents that are right here, and you have it also. So basically, it talks about exam 1 will take place in the School of Business in 204. We talked about that on Wednesday, March 4th. It'll be proctored. It'll be in person. Our class is supposed to start at what hour, Anastasia, for this class?
One more time, I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
Yeah,
It was
what
cutting out.
time is this class supposed to start?
5:05.
5:05. We never end up starting at 5:05 because everybody kind of dribbles in. That's okay, but on our exam, I insist that you arrive some minutes early because we will start at 5:05. So in this case, we will do it on the school's computers. And this is what you need to know. Our quizzes, our assignments before we took the exam was, it could be open note, it could be, wouldn't be time sensitive. In this case, for the exam, it is closed note, it is closed book, it is closed AI software. It will be you and the computer in the lab and responders. This means that you will log into the business school's computer. Make sure you know what your account password is, or a way in which you can find it, because a lot of times when I log into my account, I have it in my cache and I'm not even sometimes sure what it is. I have it on my individual computer. You are not going to be logging into your individual computer. You'll be logging into the computer in the lab. So you need to make sure you know what your password is. If you don't know what your password is, you cannot take the exam. That is a problem. The exam will take the entire class period, but when you finish, if you've really been well prepared, or you'll be able, when you are ready to leave, you'll be able to see Anastasia and she will check you out. She will make sure she checks you out, by authenticating you and being able to see you are who you say you are. So you will need to bring a pictured ID, either the cane card or the government ID. Even though we've seen you before in class, this is an essential. You will also bring your laptop with the latest version of Respondus installed as a backup. So when I think about it, Raphael, why in the world, if you're going to be taking it on the school's computer, why in the world do I require you to bring your laptop as well? Raphael.
I guess just in case, like, there's a technical difficulty, so good to just have
Right.
a backup, like your own laptop.
Right. Do you think any way in the world, Raphael, that it would be possible that some of those computers would not work appropriately? Because think about it, they're PCs that need to have that Respondus program working. It's PCs that need to get onto the internet and be able to get onto Blackboard. Do you think of any conceivable way that any of those computers could be faulty at the time we're taking the exam? Raphael.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah, it is possible.
And it's very possible. And guess what? I guarantee you that lab has 50, maybe a little bit less than 50 computers, Raphael. And I've never, ever had it a time when all of those computers work. So you don't want to be in a situation, Raphael, that all of a sudden your luck has it that you're on the computer that doesn't work. So worst comes to worst, I said, well, Raphael, I'm sorry, that's a 0. And you said, but Dr. Rush, guess what? I have my laptop here that we can go on to that. So we want to be able to do it. I want to be optimistic, but I'm also realistic. So I have prepared, and we have to prepare. And this is what I need to emphasize to you, is that we learn to have ways in which we can work around it if we encounter problems. The format of the test. The format of the test is 2 parts, as if you're taking 2 parts. You can decide if you want to take the multiple choice first or you want to take the open-ended questions first. Everybody has a preference. I allow you to use that preference. Some students I see really want to take the open-ended questions first because it's in their mind. They want to just answer that, get it all out, type out all the answers. Once they're finished, then they submit and then they take the multiple choice. Other students say, you know, I like the multiple choice. It helps me calm down. At least I know that in these questions, I can even pick the right answer. There's some right answers in there. If I can pick them even with some kind of guided intelligence or guessing, I can do something there. The open-ended, I really have to come up with. So that's the part. In the exam, if you look at, you can look right here too. In the exam review guide, you'll see I'm giving you the guide. The chapters it covers chapters 1, TG1, TG2, 5, and 4. Just like you did for the Notebook LM as a group. That's why I like you to meet as a group, that you can look at it. It will cover also the audit assignments and the lectures.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is the open-ended section the multiple choice weighted equally?
Can you repeat that?
Are both sections weighted equally?
Usually, yes. Yes. Okay. Good question. The multiple choice, even though there'll be fewer questions, right, on the open-ended, but there'll be more. So the multiple choice and the things here, I've set it up into chapters. It'll cover those chapters. And here I do kind of like the main topics: data versus information versus knowledge, the IT infrastructure, components, personnel, and services. What are the trends? What do we mean by transaction? What do we mean by transaction processing system? What's the difference between a client versus a server? In TG1, it's hardware, multiple choice, true, false questions on hardware. What's the trend? What are the characteristics? Hardware is becoming faster on the most part, it's becoming cheaper for the parts I get. It's becoming miniaturized. Remember we talked about the central processing unit, or called CPU. The characteristics, we talk about input, what is input to the CPU, what is the output. You remember we talked about the differences between primary storage versus secondary storage. You remember we had that in-class assignment where we talked about how much primary storage do you have on your computer, how much secondary storage. You remember the ALU, that stands for the arithmetic logic unit, what's its purpose, the control unit. You remember we talked about RAM, the random access memory, versus the ROM, the read-only memory. The RAM is volatile, the ROM is non-volatile. Remember we talked about registers, the cache memory. On TG2, we talked about the software. We even had an in-class assignment about operating systems. What kind of version of Mac OS do you have? What kind of version of Windows do you have? We also have Linux. We talked about also what were operating systems on our phones, iOS versus Android. We talked about application software has to be written to be compatible with operating systems of the same version of, for instance, Excel, which is an application program, has to be written another version for Mac OS versus another version for Windows. We talked about software licensing, privacy, open source, meaning that we can see the code, versus proprietary software that the vendor hides the source code from us. Chapter 5, very crucial, that we'll have a number of questions on, and that's over data. How do we, when we carry so much data, it's like with the university, how do they make the rules and regulations to that data? Who's in charge of that data? Who decides what to put into that data, what to delete? How do we know that if it's relevant? And then we talked about even the data hierarchy, starting at the lowest amount with a bit, going all the way up to a table. We talked about the application program interface, where one application talks to the other. What's a good example of that is Zoom and YouTube. You remember that from Zoom, there was an API, almost you can think about it, a hook or a connection to YouTube. We talked about data when we have like a student database, what could be a primary key versus a secondary key, what is unique. We talked about databases. We talked about a regular file system. We talked about in the university where they have your data everywhere and it could be duplicated, versus a database management system that we're storing the data in one place. We talked about big data like the stock market data and the characteristics, how we can micro segment, how if we were in marketing, we want to get maybe all my graduating undergraduates and segment that versus all my freshmen. I talk about historical data where I want to do some insights and training on. So I create a data warehouse. A data mart then is a subset. My data dictionary, all my data has descriptions. I talk about metadata. Is not my individual data, but the description of my data. They use metadata a lot in phones when they track somebody. They'll know I talked to somebody, let's say in North Carolina, and maybe I talked to somebody abroad in India, but they don't know what I say, but they know the connection of my metadata. And then security of all my data, since it's so widespread, is that you need to know what does an exposure mean, what does a threat means, what is a vulnerability, why is that important, what is the characteristics of social engineering, my security of it, my hacking when they're going to denial of service or distributed denial of service, the difference between different viruses that I could possibly have, different ways that hackers can create havoc, a virtual private network. When I'm on the internet and I just use my email, a lot of times that data can be captured. Sometimes I can, if I want to be even more secure, rather than going through the regular internet, I use a virtual private network. I can have malicious software all the time running, adwares, spywares. Basically, people can attach different devices where I'm typing in my passwords or my credit card information, and they call it key loggers, that they're taking that. I can have what they call phishing attacks. Basically, they're phishing for data to gather that I don't know about. My ransomware, instead of kidnapping somebody, they're kidnapping my servers. And then what I also have to know is that I know as soon as I use computers, I'm at risk. I'm really at risk anytime, right? I wake up in the morning, I'm at risk, but I have to assess those risks. I have to manage those risks, and I have to reduce those risks. I can do biometrics, right? They can look at my eyes, they can look at anything about me. And what do I want to do? I cannot get myself 100% secure, but I have to show that I have, just like in accounting, I have controls that I just don't let everything loose, right? If I have an expensive car, what do? I lock it. I don't leave it with the keys in the car, the motor running, and say, take it, right? So I have physical controls, I have communication controls, access controls, we know. And then I know I have user roles in information systems, right? We've already done that. We did that quite a bit, right? In this one section, you're the student and I'm the instructor. Anastasia is the teaching assistant, right? She has a different role. In the audit area, you all were promoted and have more availability to do certain areas. We talked about the least privilege rule, that we want to give everyone in information system the least amount of access for the roles we need to do. If they didn't let me see your grades in this class, it won't let me do my job. So it has to let me see everybody's grades in my class. I need to be able to insert those grades in my class, but the least privileges, I do not have any access to your other grades in your other classes. That's not going to help me with my own class to be able to see your own grades in your other classes, or even to manipulate that. We talked about HTTP, which is the hypertransfer protocol that we have. And in this case, it's basically how we traverse on the internet. And when I see an S, I know it's going to be secure. So if I have some credit card information that I know it's going to be secure, I want that to be encrypted. This part is all for the first part of the test. Everybody clear of the multiple choice questions? Similar to what you did in a group of doing all the chapters, plus group 0 did chapter 1. The next part are open-ended questions. I will ask some form of these open-ended questions for the exam. Does everybody understand? On the second part, can be open-ended. If it's closed book, closed note, how in the world could I study for this? What I say is, I'll give you the questions and I will choose up to 3 questions for these. So the best way to prepare, if you know the answers well for these, you should do well for the open-ended part. So you see what they cover, a lot of security. Basically on user-led practices, how should you practice to secure that digital information from the readings and class discussions. Notice this was the article that I just talked about. In defining cybersecurity frameworks. Remember, we talked about those frameworks of NIST, NIST, or we talked about the European framework, the education framework, the financial framework, and discuss how they guide security strategies in where? University and financial institutions. We know what universities are, and many of you are finance majors that will be working in financial institutions. I want you to describe at least 2 specific frameworks and explain why they're important for managing risk. The other question 3 is what we did in our assignments. Remember, everybody now is quite familiar with Zoom. When I talk about a cloud-based screen recorder, we talk about a recorder that saves to your computer. We talk about the combination of Zoom and a screen recording program, and talking about examples and factors. So 3 is basically one of our assignments. 4 talks about data, defining a field, a record, a data file, and then basically the idea, hey, I would have to design a university student class database. What fields would be good to be put in there? What should be the primary key? Explain why that primary key is important. 5 is again about data, the idea of data governance, why it's essential for protecting student data, research data at the university. At the university, we talk about a 2-step process for accessing university systems. So you first have to define what authentication is, give an example. The second one is define authorization, explain how it determines what a user can see or do after logging in, define the principle of least privilege, then provide 2 examples of how this principle works in practice to protect sensitive information. For example, briefly state the potential negative consequences of this rule is not followed. Then we talk about threats, exposures, vulnerabilities. We compare and contrast what's risk management and what's risk analysis. And again, I want you to give specific examples so you really understand it rather than just regurgitating the definition. Then 7 looks like one of your last assignments about AI-powered research assistants. How can it enhance productivity? How can it improve the quality of your work? Explain the potential benefits for business outside of educational use. Where do you see the technology going in the future? What improvements do you see? This really discuss what you believe is the single most pressing risk or ethical concern with the rise of these AI assistants. Explain why it needs our attention, right? Is this so much that people start stopping to think? This really is a great example of what you did for your last assignment and what you're going to be doing for your next assignment. Here is why are colleges and universities considered high-value targets. Define what ransomware is, why is ransomware especially damaging in a university environment, and provide 2 examples. And the other one is how universities can use best practices like zero trust. What is zero trust? What's continuous monitoring? What we need to do security awareness training to improve it, and explain why these strategies are especially important. Comments, Preston? You got the idea what the exam's going to be like?
Oh yeah.
Any comments about it?
No comments. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's all on
And that's what I want you to do, Preston, is this, for this test, that you have guidance to what to study. I don't care, Preston, how you study for this. I even encourage you to use AI tools to help you. The only difference, Preston, is when you go to the exam, it has to be in your mind. That's all. And you have to be able to defend it. That's where I see the human coming together with AI. That you're in the center and you can basically use it to help you defend your decisions, to help you decide where you want a business to grow, to help you decide what should be automated, where should we be using it and training it. Then I say, then it can succeed. Rather than saying, it'll stop me from thinking. I want to encourage you that a company really needs you, Preston. Otherwise, they say, it's the same thing with a professor. What do they need me for? We could have a bot just go over the same material. And in my question is maybe that would be good enough or even better. So it's like, where does the human come into this loop? And there may be in decision making and being able to be critical to defend our decision, the empathy, whatever we want to go. But I think everybody's role in the next 5 to 10 years will be changing. Who becomes what's a doctor going to do? Physicians are even thinking, where are they going to change? Now maybe nurses should be in the center. Because what do? They help with empathy. They actually get you out of bed, put you into bed, right? Help you with the daily things. And maybe for the technical things, maybe AI will be able to use it. Questions? Any comments, Anastasia, that you think the students need to know? You've been through this. How did it help about the exam? How you got any
Here's
tips?
what I'll say. I've found that the most beneficial way to study is to take the study guide, fill it out fully, whether that's using AI or using the PowerPoints. Up to you how you want to fill it out, and then study that back and forth, like the back of your hand. You can use Notebook LM for that. But I'd recommend just filling it out, getting all the information onto a page. And then if you realize you don't understand something, reach out to me or Dr. Rush or Lily or any of us really, and then we'll help you kind of explain some concepts further. The study guide is the best resource, I would say, to study those short answers, study those, but try not to memorize anything, try to actually understand the logic behind things. That being said, the test, there's not trick questions. We're not trying to, Dr. Rush doesn't want to fail you. None of us want you to fail. So it's not a hard test, but you do need to study. You can't just show up unprepared. That won't work. So
you can come unprepared, but it may not
well,
be to your advantage.
might not go well for you. Yeah.
But and basically I want to do this. So the second part of the class, I want to emphasize less of the readings and the regular assignments and more about your projects. And in your project, each group will then be AI consultants, and you'll take a certain area like wealth management or basically like therapy or healthcare or marketing or helping entrepreneurs, and that you will have something to take with you. You got that, Preston? Rather than somebody saying, oh, what did you get on that last test of Dr. Rush's? Nobody's going to care, right? But here, let me show you what I got. Let me show you that I have my channel, that I have a website with a domain name. Here are, I know, these types of products that can help you. We'll do additional things on AI. We'll create voice agents. You'll say, hey, you want a voice agent to answer your phone? We'll create those. So you'll be able to basically help someone in terms of business. Everybody got it? Anna, you have any questions? Or Raphael?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. So I'll be using this, I'll be going more into detail. So what I suggest you do is start looking at the study guide. And when you have issues, for instance, Anna, when something's not clear, I will do my utmost to help you during class. So we can feel like, hey, I'm confident about this. And also, Anna, that you can explain it to someone. You can explain it, and then not that ALU is an arithmetic logic unit. Who cares? But why is that important? Why is RAM going to be important? Right? What is it? What do I care what operating system anyone has? Right? How's that going to help me? Right? Why should I even consider it? Right? Of any of those topic areas and all that we talked about, security and data, right? That we have to be secure, that all of this is open. Guess what? We are really open, so easy. If we wanted to be hackers, we wouldn't even have to be professional. Just ask AI, right? To go into a system, and maybe we can find the password and the username of one of the IT executives. Maybe AI will find that if we can get it to go. Those bots can even create more havoc, take each of our computers, and our computers then can hack different computers in the world, and we're not even aware of it. How can it help us that? Ransomware, the whole university, I don't know if you know that, but 95% of our revenue, guess where it comes from, Anna, for this university? From the medical, from the hospital. 95%. We're a drop in the bucket. The Coral Gables campus and the School of Business, even though you say we're business, we're a drop in the bucket of their revenues. So can you imagine ransomware taking over the hospital? How many millions of dollars they make on that aspect if we're shut down for a week, a month? We're out of business. Even though we're nonprofit, we still can't continue. So these are so important for us to know about. That you said, big deal. Oh, don't you hate that duo? It's asking me all this. Who cares about that duo? There's a reason. Because anybody grabbing onto their sources, then they can get in the network just like we are. Or even internally, internal threats. I got all those IT guys. Do I know even what they're doing all day long? They really know the back end. They know it better than me. I'm not part of IT. Right? They're disgruntled. They hate their job. Or they can make 30 times more or 100 times more, or giving information that they have no business giving out. Telling you who's in our hospital. That's supposed to be private. Maybe we have somebody famous in our hospital for some disease, some CEO. If I know that ahead of time, I could short their stock. They have who knows what kind of fatal disease that they want to keep private. I know it, you know it, can short it in a minute. Go to the poly market or whatever. So it's important. Okay, anything else? So let's do roll. I'll stay with you as long as you need. Answer any personal questions. I think we got the idea. I think that even that group assignment is good even for, think about it as studying for the exam. In both end, for the multiple choice and for the open-ended, right? And I want to see in the open answers that you really, why I'm asking for examples, I want to see that you actually know it rather than just memorizing something, look it up on ChatGPT or Google or something. But that you really have self-confidence to have it. Okay, so we see it. We have the code in the on the chat too. And stay with me if you have additional questions. And Anastasia, thank you for doing a wonderful job that we found. I think that study guide, it helps a lot, right? That everybody can find it rather
Yeah,
than searching
for sure.
for, what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it's in a good spot right now, and it's definitely a
Yeah,
good
everybody
study
sees it,
guide. So
right,
yeah.
what's due, rather than, hiding it. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Should I
So
stop sharing?
yes, please. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, so let me shut down.
Hey, I was just letting you know that my blackboard's broken, and that's why.